Hey y'all, it's Tom. Listen, this has been an insane handful of weeks. We've had crazy weather patterns, we've had storms and hurricanes, we've had technical and computer problems on our end. We have had a lot of crazy last minute changes, trying to adjust to how we're going to work and live and do school with our kids this fall. Thank you, coronavirus. So we're back on track. We're fixing to launch season 2 of the Backpack Friends audio podcast. So watch for that on iTunes and Spotify and everywhere else. But this thing right here that you're fixing to watch, this is part 1 of a conversation. So I sat down with a couple of friends, Jeff Reedy, Summer Davis. We got together over Zoom and we talked about what does it mean to live with an open hand. So what you're going to see right now is part 1. We had this a long, amazing conversation that was really, really rich, but it was over an hour long. So this is part 1. This is the more spiritual side of what that means. Part 2 that's going to drop next week is the philosophical, the practical, what the word karate means and what that looks like from a philosophical and family kind of living your life aspect. So jump in. It is so good to be back and to be back in the saddle with all of you. Hope you have an amazing day, and I hope you get something really rich out of these next 2 episodes. Here's part 1 on open-handed living.
The stuff in your life is good. You just don't want to cling to it. You don't want to grasp it. You don't want to hang on to it so that you don't have an open hand to do other things.
There's truly freedom and a gift in living open-handed. If you can walk away from what society says we're supposed to want and have and need and all of those things.
Having the faith as a person of faith to just trust that there is plenty, and if this is my purpose, if this is what I'm supposed to do, if this is the way I'm supposed to live my life, there will be enough that I don't have to hold so tightly to things, that there's an abundance. Y'all, this is Tom. Listen, we have started this new Impactivist group here on Facebook and pushing some things out to YouTube and that kind of thing. And I don't know where you're watching this from, but we are glad that you jumped in for this conversation. There's a few of us in this group. It's kind of a first-time thing for us, and I know there's more to come. But today, I have some friends here gathered virtually, and we want to talk about something that has become real important. It's in light of COVID, in light of the change and the craziness of 2020, it's become real apparent that we need to simplify our lives. We need to live really kind of an open-handed kind of way. And so what I want to do is welcome everybody. Thank all of you for sticking around and for joining us wherever you are. But Jeff, let's start with you. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jeff Reedy, and I am good friends with Tom Cottar. We went to ETBU together, and so did James Armstrong, who will be introducing himself here in just a minute. I majored in theater at ETBU and then went on and did my master's work at Dallas Baptist in English. And these days I am writing books and teaching classes, and I just published my 6th time travel book. So that's me in a brief nutshell.
Hi, I'm Summer Jowers. I am also known as Summer Davis, depends on where you are. I am a television producer, head of production, line producer, you name it, I've done it. And now am kind of on my own opening a bookkeeping, all-inclusive bookkeeping company that I'll be able to handle anything from small businesses to large corporations and doing accounting for them.
Hey, so let's start with Jeff. Jeff, this was kind of your idea, kind of your brainchild. We were talking about different ideas and things we're dealing with, going through. You brought up the idea of open-handed living, and this has kind of been part of your journey. So tell us about that.
Living with an open hand is a significant approach, a good philosophy towards how to deal with the crisis that we're in, how to deal with stress in our lives, and how to be generous with our time, with our energy, with our finances, with all the things that God has given us, being able to receive and to give freely with an open hand, I felt like was a significant way of seeing our lives and keeping from going crazy in the middle of all this, uncertainty and all the time that we're going through right now. Starting off, looking at things from kind of a Christian worldview, the Good Samaritan is a really good story that we have that kind of illustrates the point. So, you have the guy who's been beat up laying by the side of the road, and people walk by, and you have two religious leaders who walk by, and both of them are too caught up in their status or their time or, worried about being robbed themselves or something. And they're not really living with an open hand. So they just walk right on by and leave the guy laying in the ditch, right? And then you have the Good Samaritan who comes along, and he has this open hand mentality. And so he reaches out with his open hand and helps the guy up out of the ditch. And then he takes him to an inn and is generous with his resources and pays for, the guy to stay there, pays for the medical treatment and whatever the guy needs for his food and so forth. So there is a good illustration right there of the open hand mentality.
Well, and I think it's a great illustration, because I think that's a human problem, right? I mean, across all cultures, across all demographics, rich, poor, white, black, Hispanic, it doesn't matter where you live. We live in this culture of things, right? I don't know how popular this will be to say, but I have a love-hate relationship with the movie Fight Club. Because it's a terrible movie in a lot of ways, but it's a great movie in some ways. It's really there's some anti-consumerism themes that run through it, right? There's a lot of great, if you know me personally, there's some great quotes in that movie. There's Tyler Durden's all about the things that you own end up owning you. So there's some real truth to that letting go, like you were saying, letting go of things gives us freedom.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, it applies to everybody. This open hand mentality is definitely something that's very, it connects to Christianity. It's very conducive to Christianity, but it's not exclusively Christian. So it's something that people from all backgrounds and all walks can definitely appreciate. A second really good story from the Bible that talks about this open-handed living. By the way, we're not supposed to talk about Fight Club. Remember, that's the first rule.
Well played.
Thank you. So another story from the Bible that talks about open-handed living is the rich man who comes to Jesus and asks what he must do to be perfect. Okay. So the first question he asks Jesus is, what should I do to be saved? And Jesus answers that question, obey the commandments. And then he says, well, I've done that since I was just a little kid. So, I'm good, right? There's nothing more for me to do. What should I do more in order to be perfect? And Jesus gives him an answer he doesn't really like, but it's one that really agrees with our open-handed mentality. He says, if you want to be perfect, sell everything you have. In other words, empty your hands and give the money to the poor. Don't even grasp the money, and come follow me, because now your hands are empty and I can put them to work. And of course, we know the rich man went away sadly because he was clutching tightly to those possessions and wasn't wanting to let go and keep his hand open, not trusting God to use the resources that he has for good and for putting more things into his hands to be responsible for.
I think this is an interesting one for me. I'm in a really unique place in my life where I left my job. Both of my kids have graduated high school and just recently moved out. I left my job back in December after 9 years. It is a job that I will probably, more than likely, not ever be able to attain the financial freedom that I had there anywhere else, because you just don't make the money in many industries that you make in the entertainment industry. A lot of what you're talking about right now, it was very easy for me to give open-handed because I had it. It almost became more empty to me than when I couldn't give financially at all, because I was barely able to pay the rent every month and I was just trying to get by. When I was able to give at those points, it truly was that sacrificial giving. It truly was making an impact on me as it was on the person that I was giving to. When I was making all of this money and I was working 20 hours a day and I wasn't able to really do anything, it was very easy to go, oh, you need $1,000? Okay, here you go. And it's amazing to me because I probably got more recognition because of the money that I was throwing out, but my relationships had suffered so much because I wasn't giving with my heart. I was giving because it looked good and because I could. I truly wanted to help the people that I was helping. It always came from a good place, but it was sort of an empty place. It was like, oh, okay, here you need this, here you need this. It wasn't until I walked away from all of it, and maybe I can't give as much monetarily, but I'm much more connected to what I'm giving, and I feel like much more open in what I'm doing. That when you say open-handed to me, I look at it from a very different place, because it's almost like an open heart. I give open-handed, I give with an open heart, which I didn't do, if I was really honest, when I was bringing in all of the money and had all of the esteem and sort of felt like I had arrived, you know?
So to go on, there's one more, well, I guess there's a couple more scriptures that I wanted to talk about, but one of them is Psalm 81:10 says, open your mouth wide and I will fill it. And the same idea goes not just for our mouths, but for our hands. So if we walk around our lives with our possessions, like for instance, our cell phone, clutched tightly in our hands, fearful that someone might take away what we value, like our time, our money, our lives even, then we miss out on all the amazing things every day that God wants to put into our hands. So we sit there clutching these things that we think are super important when God just wants us to let go of those things so that he can put even more important things into our hands.
See, and I think this is a real interesting idea. I appreciate the way you phrased that, because I hadn't put it in that kind of context about clutching my cell phone. Because I mean, can we be honest? Can we be like 100% honest? How many hours a day do I spend with my cell phone in my hand, even though it's like, it just feels good, right? I may not even be using it. I may not even be on Facebook or on a call, but it fits my hand because I've held it so much.
Right.
But just the idea that we are all so, limited. We're so finite that our hands can only hold so much. And that once they are full, that's it. That's all the things everything else that I see, that I want, that I desire, those things I can't possess those things until I lay something else down. Right. So I think that when you said that a while ago, that really triggered something, resonated in me. I think that's a really great perspective.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point that I hadn't thought about until just now, but thinking about your open hand is also a way of thinking about your open schedule. You know, sometimes we fill our schedule so full of stuff, and our schedule is finite. You can only pack so much.
Cottar.
Hey, look out.
So we have to be careful to leave room in our schedule, because if you pack your schedule so tight you don't have another minute, then when somebody walks in a crisis and needs your time and needs your help, you don't have time to help them. So that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. I'm glad you brought up the metaphorical side of it like that. One more passage, I think, is the only one that I have from the Bible. And it's where Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today. So the idea is to live in the now. Don't live in the regret of yesterday. Forgive people and let it go. Don't live in fear of tomorrow, but trust God to give you what you need when that day comes. So instead of living in the past or in the future, live today with your hands open for what he wants to put into them.
So, okay, so let me, this is like, I'm just going to be like completely honest, right? Transparent here. To me, that makes me, it's a good reminder that I think we attach ourselves to things for security.
Right.
Right. For things like identity or expression or influence or social rank among our peers, all those kinds of things. That the stuff itself isn't bad. If you want some stuff, great, go get you some stuff. But be as eager to get rid of the stuff as you are to attain the stuff, those things. I think it's super, super interesting. I wasn't even thinking about this conversation. But this morning while I was getting ready, I watched a segment of a podcast. Joe Rogan. Y'all know who Joe Rogan is? Joe Rogan's podcast, probably the top 2 or 3, if not one, most listened to podcast watched on the planet right now. He's got this clip of an interview with Elon Musk. And, there's Elon Musk, there is Oprah, there's Jeff Bezos, and there's God. And those are like the 4 most wealthy people on the planet. So Elon Musk is talking about how he's selling his houses right now. He made the comment, he said, I'm divesting myself of all of these material things. He said, I'm going to keep the house across the street, which oddly enough was Gene Wilder's house, which is real quirky and interesting. And
yeah,
he said, I want to keep that because it's significant that it belonged to Gene Wilder. And I'm going to keep the house I'm living in. He's going to keep a few cars because they are work related, and there's some sentimental things that he said he's going to hang on to. But right now he's in this season of, I have all this stuff and it's not I don't have significance by having the stuff. And I think what you said right there, about about living in the now, don't live in regret of yesterday. Don't live in fear of tomorrow. That's the tension of, we hang on to yesterday and we're afraid of tomorrow. So to calm that anxiety or feel that security, that need, we hang on to stuff.
right.
Or maybe that's just me.
No,
What's so?
go ahead, please. Uh-oh, we lost Summer.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, so what you said there was really good too, because the stuff isn't bad, right? The things are useful tools, and God has given us these blessings. It's not something where we're trying to shun all material possessions. It's not a matter of my cell phone is evil and I need to throw it in the lake if I want to have a relationship with God, right? The cell phone is good. The stuff in your life is good. You just don't want to cling to it. You don't want to grasp it. You don't want to hang on to it so that you don't have an open hand to do other things, for God to put other things into your hand.
I think what's so interesting right now, I'm in this, like I said, I'm in this really unique position in my life where I'm changing some things up. So I just sold my house. I literally in my life right this moment have zero tying me down. I have no car payment, no house payment. I have zero debt. My kids are grown. They're in college. I do have college debt, but I'm paying cash for it. Everything that I have worked so hard to attain, that house, that car, that all of those things that I thought I had to have, that job with that title, with that money, private school for the kids, all of that was great. And I'm so thankful that I was able to do it. But the freedom that comes with living with an open hand, and I think in one of the threads that we were all talking in, one of the things that I said I've been trying to really focus on is surrendering. And I think that it lends a lot. It sort of has the same theme running through it. I surrender what I have, what I give, who I am. I really am in this place where I get to be totally free and sort of paint what the next 50 years might look like, obviously with the little hiccups that life throws at us. But there's truly freedom and a gift in living open-handed if you can walk away from what society says we're supposed to want and have and need and all of those things.
Especially during this COVID stuff, it has reminded me that really the only permanent things in life are spiritual things and relationships with other people. Everything else is temporary. Everything else is just a vapor. So when those temporary things leave my hands, I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and that actually ties into one thing from the middle of the night that I had too. So look, if you don't mind, one aspect of keeping an open hand is learning to be generous with our time, money, and energy. It's easy to find ourselves grasping at our schedule, the money we've earned, the energy that we find in short supply as we get older. Because I don't know about you, but these days I have to like reach for that extra caffeine to try to keep me going throughout the day. It's a conscious decision that we have to make daily to be present to those in our lives. So even if you are physically there with someone, you can be mentally doing other things, working on your schedule and worrying about this, but to be present to people in your lives, to be generous with your money to those who are in need, to give what energy that you have to help fallen brothers and sisters out of their problems. Of course, we know that this choice is an investment, like you were just saying, in the only thing that lasts forever, and that is other people. So we're choosing not to be distracted by all the urgent things around us, but to invest our time in the things that are actually worth investing in, and that is others. So yeah, that's a really good point you made, Tom.
But the other thing to that is, I think that's important, is part of trusting in living with an open hand is there have been times in my life, been seasons in my life where the universe seemed to be scarcity. It was all about there's not enough. I have to hang on to it because I don't have the faith. I don't have the trust. I don't have the certainty that I'm going to have enough. And then there are other seasons I've been in where I've been confident that there's plenty. There's this abundance, right? That the way the universe God created is just, there's enough for everyone. Case in point, we have an organization in town who just closed their doors this week, I think, maybe a week before. But their organization, it's a nonprofit. Their organization was that we were all fighting for the same dollar. We were all trying to scrap over the same nickel to do basically the same job. So there was this mindset, this belief that there's just not enough in the universe. There's not enough in the world. And I have to hang on to every dime. And so my hands get clenched and, tight-fisted and tired and sore and weak because I'm holding so tight. But having the faith as a person of faith to just trust that there is plenty. And if this is my purpose, if this is what I'm supposed to do, if this is the way I'm supposed to live my life, there will be enough that I don't have to hold so tightly to things, that there's an abundance.
Yeah. And strangely enough, that also ties into one of my insights that I woke up in the middle of the night and wrote down. So it sounds like I was being given some insights that were going to tie into everything we talked about today. But the thing we have to realize is it's not a matter of whether or not you're going to hang on to things or whether you're going to live with open hands. We're going to give things up, whether we grasp onto them or not. It's just, are you going to try to grasp onto it and get hurt in letting it go? Because, loved ones are going to pass away. We're going to lose our jobs, even if it is to retire. We're going to lose our pets. And there's nothing quite like the pain of losing a fur friend. I mean, that's a specific kind of pain. We're going to give up everything that we have one of these days. The choice is between trying to desperately grasp onto the things that we lose and maybe lose our faith and our hope and our joy in the process, or giving things up with an open hand and trusting God to work everything for our good. So like what you were saying a minute ago, you felt like there was scarcity and that you were all fighting for the same thing, and it can turn people against each other when they're trying to grasp onto something. But if you learn to live with an open hand, then we can all help each other to reach the goals that we're trying to reach. So.